Hello everyone, my name is Leo. I want to tell you about my experience going to a rich school for millionaires. I agree, it sounds kind of cool, but not everyone is so kind inside. There was such an authoritarian regime you could not even dream of. I really hope for your likes and comments on this one. And who knows, maybe you have a similar story like mine. If you do, put a plus sign in the comments, or even better, describe your story. I'm not rich, neither is my family. My parents are simple workers, and I am a normal schoolboy. I spent almost half my school life in the simplest city school in my provincial city. It was a very boring place to study, boring lessons, no entertainment. School, home, we did nothing else. But then something very unexpected happened to me. One day, Aunt Ashley came to visit. She worked all of her life in the house of some rich people, looked after their children, and raised the owner's son, who's called Robert. Yes, she was his nanny. My aunt had no children of her own. She gave all of her love to Robert. When the boy was growing up, he had the first problems of growing up. The fact is, he never learned to stand up for himself. And the children of the rich people are very aggressive, and they do not forgive weakness. Hiring bodyguards meant showing fear of someone's victory over him. Robert needed a protector, just not a noticeable one. Someone who would suit his age, become a friend, study there, and at the same time, do his job, get good money and study in the most prestigious place. Someone Aunt Ashley trusted, which was me. That's right, I was offered for a job and I agreed. My mother was a little panicked that I would get bullied over there because of Robert, or that I would get beaten, but I could protect myself, unlike him. The main thing is that our friendship with Robert should be as natural as possible, so not as to arouse suspicion. The very next day, I came to a new school, where I was not greeted in a very friendly way. I understood that immediately I needed to set my own limits, show authority. So I behaved calmly, did not push myself, and in the meantime studied the contingent. Robert pretended that we knew each other. It was necessary according to the plan. The first lesson was quiet, but already at recess, Bill came up to me. He was in charge of everything here. And who are you? From where? I'm Leo. I came from home. Haha, you're a wit. I'll give you one last chance. Who are you and where are you from? I thought the school for the deaf was a couple of blocks away. What did you say? I'm sorry, if I knew sign language, I would tell you with my hands. Oh yes, one gesture I do know. Then, very slowly, I straightened my middle finger and showed it to Bill. All the guys burst out laughing. They started saying, "Hey Bill, you got busted out of the blue." This made Bill very angry. He got up, grabbed my shirt, and I just looked into his eyes and smiled. Then the teacher came in, warned me after Bill, and said, "See you soon." After that, several guys came up to me, including Robert, and I pretended to get to know them all. They asked me where I was from too, but I said it didn't matter. It didn't matter because I was here now. At the next break, Bill needed to vent the rest of his anger, and he went up to Robert in the bathroom, started digging around. I was just doing my business in the bathroom. When I heard the slap, I realised that Bill had pushed Robert and he had fallen to the ground. I immediately got out of the bath. Before Bill hit Robert, I hit him first. "You are messed up too much, newbie," Billy said, and jumped on me. He was strong, and a couple of guys pinned me to the mirror, while the other two held me. Billy hit me in the stomach. Robert ran away stupidly. I took a couple of punches. After, with all my strength, I kicked Bill in the bud, and then sharply kicked the one on the left right in the kidney, and he let me out. The third guy ran away. I caught my breath, then said, "Hey Billy, you fight like a girl," and left for class. Robert technically thanked me, but it wasn't worth it because it was my job. After school, we went home together. Robert's mother, Mrs. Porter, immediately rushed to ask questions. Robert told them all about it, and Aunt Ashley was a little worried, but I calmed them down. I told them that I'd never met anyone like them. Robert and I were left alone to talk. I told him that I would teach him some techniques, but first he would have to work hard physically. What does that mean? Have you ever done any work in the house? But why? We have servants, workers. And when I'm not around, who's going to beat off the bad guys? Or do you think that I'll always be there for you? I like that idea. So will I, if I get paid as well. But that's not the point. Dear Robert, I'm planning to spend time with my girlfriend that I'll find later. The problem is, you're not exactly right for this role. I like girls, I'm sorry. I see you're bad at jokes as well as the physical exercise. Forget it. Let's go into the garden. A couple of minutes later, we decided to help the gardener do his work. Robert was pulling heavy wheelbarrows. Mrs. Porter protested that if I was the one forcing her son to work. Hence, Aunt Ashley asked me not to interfere. From that moment on, every day, Robert and I did some chores together. He cried and whined, but the training continued. In parallel, I taught him the lessons of self-defense, the right way to hold a punch. When we got to school, none of the boys greeted us. Apparently, it was Billy's job. During lunch, the guys threw garbage on our food. The girls poured juice on our heads, stole books and notebooks from the locker, and tore them apart. "Ah, these rich people," I said to Robert. And then, oops, I'm not talking about you. It's okay, I know what you meant. After lesson, Rob and I left school to go home, but Billy came out of nowhere. "And where are you guys going?" "I see you are friends now," he said. "Not your business, Billy. Go where you were going, or do you want me to say that again with a gesture?" I said sarcastically. Then 5 of our classmates appeared around the corner. They had bats, and they were really prepared. Billy was afraid, and he stamped away. I put my body in front of him, and we were in the centre of a circle. Billy came out first, and he attacked me. We had a fight. We knocked each other to the ground and started to hit each other, and I hit him on the nose with my bare hand. "What have you done?" he asked me maliciously. And then the rest of the boys attacked me. I had no strength left to resist. I was just trying to get out of there. And then I heard a roar. Ah! It was Robert, who had come to rescue me. He managed to hit back and put 2 of the guys down in a couple of minutes. After we ran home. About an hour later, we received messages from our classmates. Someone had filmed it on video, and the next day came into school almost as stars. Other bullied guys came up to us and said, "Now I'm not afraid of Billy." Finally, someone taught him a lesson. Hurrah, I can go to school safely now and not be afraid. How did you even study here? You have money and a great school, but you guys walked around like prisoners all of these years. Listened to the richest boy and obeyed him. Who is he to manage you? A voice from the crowd said, "He's the director's son." So what? Does that give him the right to bully you? Then the guys thought about it. Robert stood there smiling, feeling better than ever. Just then, Billy and his father, our headmaster, came into the classroom. Robert and I were called to the office. The director was very indignant at our fight and didn't want to hear anything about our side and the fact that it was his son that was the instigator. I was expelled from school. I left Robert behind. Billy was elated. I wasn't upset about leaving. Studying at the Millionaire School wasn't like I thought. I spent more effort to help Robert than I gave knowledge, but I was glad that I changed the mind of some classmates. Despite my departure, everything had changed now. The guys no longer listened to Billy. They fought back, and he was left alone, and he lost all of his assistants. There was nothing the director could do about it, and his son wasn't happy. Mrs. Porter thanked me enough, paid me more than she should have, and I continued to take wrestling lessons with Robert. Now we did work in the garden every day, ran in the morning, and Robert was noticeably tired over the summer. He turned out to be a great guy, more confident, and more importantly, he was no longer afraid of Bill or anyone else. My classmates often visited me, and everyone was surprised to see my small house. "And how did you come to us?" they kept asking. I dodged the question, said it was up to Billy and that nightmare, that's all. Consider me as a good fairy. I will come for the teeth of anyone who offend others. Like Billy, do you understand? Well, I was joking, but no one laughed. The rich kid's school is obviously bad at jokes. Would you like to study there?
Hi everyone, I'm Trevor. I don't have any parents, so I'm a foster kid. But not so long ago, I was adopted and, my worst enemy became my parent. I'll tell you about it now. As I said, I don't know where I was born or who my parents are. I only know that I was brought to the threshold of an orphanage when I was very young. I was only 5 months old. As the teacher of the house says, it was the middle of the night and someone was knocking hard on the boarding school door. And when they came out, they saw me wrapped in a bag, a bottle with a mixture, and nothing else. I don't know who my parents are, why they gave up on me, or why they gave me life at all if they couldn't be responsible for it. But, on the other hand, I probably don't want to know. I grew up in a boarding school. Instead of having 2 parents, I had several nannies. Of course, life there with its own rules, restrictions, and problems, but I didn't know any other. In the orphanage, everyone told me that I was aggressive, impudent, ill-mannered, and bullying boy, and I did not understand what I was doing wrong. But personally, I was happy with everything. I wasn't going to dance and sing in front of anyone, because I didn't owe anyone anything. Time passed, and when I grew up, I went to school. I even lost count of how many schools I changed. I had my own stories in each of them. Often I had to defend my rights with my fists. I'm not a fan of violence, but, as it happens, you behave smoothly, and you're sure to get to the bottom of any boy like rich boy and start conflicts. And I hate when a kid behaves like a big mouth, and I use the tools of instant response. Fists. both simple and fast and effective. But I often pay for it with my stability. Although this concept is relative, because, on the other hand, the fact that I was constantly expelled is also a kind of stability, right? When I was pushed into school for the last time, I had already lost all hope that I'd ever go to the same school for more than 2 months. They didn't want to take me, and this is understandable. What kind of principal would want such a student who constantly undermines the reputation of the institution? But in this, I was taken. The headmistress, Miss Mills, was interested in my candidacy. She said, "We educate even the worst," when I came into the office. This phrase already made me feel uneasy. One look from her said, "Sit down and shut up." Miss Mills had glasses, a jacket, a knee length skirt, and a shirt inside, and she wore medium heels and probably never smiled. She had a reputation as an iron lady. Everyone was afraid of her, so I realized that I would not stay in this school for long. "Young man, sit up straight. This is not a pub," she shouted to me every time she entered the lesson. "Trevor Anders, come up to my office now. Trevor Anders, leave the dining room. Trevor Anders, go home and change your clothes. Trevor Anders, comb your hair. Trevor Anders, stand still. Trevor Anders, listen. Don't get in the way. Get in, get out." And blah, blah, blah. Oh no, I'm sick of the headmistress. I felt like she was being stupid and picking on me, but she didn't know yet that I wasn't going to let it go. I did everything to provoke her even more. I dropped flowers in pots, scribbled on school walls, furniture, always had a showdown in the schoolyard, fought with the guys, was late for classes, or just missed them outright. I knew I was pushing myself, but I couldn't let Miss Mills boss me around. For each joint, I got either a bad grade or a duty at school, and if I refused to comply, complaints went to the principal of the boarding school, and there I was punished worse. But one day, I got mad enough to plant a rat in her office. She screamed like she was out of her mind. The whole school heard her yell, and I laughed heartily. She immediately figured out who was responsible. I had already packed my things and was thinking of leaving, because the deduction was guaranteed. But she did something else, something I didn't expect. She adopted me. When I heard the news, I thought she was crazy. At first, I didn't even believe it, and then I asked why she did it, to which she replied that she would raise me. Then I realized how badly I was in trouble. From the next day, I started a different lifestyle. Wake up on the alarm clock, shower, breakfast, school without delay, then home, some chores, and sleep. I resisted for a long time, tried to escape, swore with her until I was blue in the face, but nothing took her. She clung to me, and that was it. She didn't have any children of her own. Or rather, she had a son who had been living in his life for many years and didn't even write to her. We fought it both at school and at home. It was a difficult year, but then I think I got used to it. I didn't think she was such a witch anymore. As soon as I thought about it, problems came into our more or less established life. The principal of the boarding school found me and said that my mother showed up and she wanted to meet me. We went there, along with Miss Mills. I have a habit, as it's called. I was terribly worried and didn't know what to expect. I saw before me a thin alcoholic who shamelessly looked me in the eye and said, "Let's go home, son. I need you." I was so stunned by these words that I just kept silent. Miss Mills grabbed my arm and told me to get in the car, and my birth mother started calling me and hit the headmistress. "What do you need it for? No one to work to buy you alcohol? He's my son, and only my son. You are 17 years late," she shouted, and was about to leave. But so the alcoholic grabbed her by the hair, and Miss Mills put her down with one right blow, and went on. I was just blown away, and the principal of the boarding school pretended that he didn't see anything. She hasn't been in my life since. When we got home, I wanted to thank her, but she told me not to say anything, so she knows everything. Our life was back to normal. But we were happy early. Suddenly, her prodigal son appeared. The news that she had adopted a child must have spread and reached him. You might think he was jealous of his mother, but the first thing he did was come to me, tell me not to expect to inherit from her. That was all he was interested in. I didn't interfere in their affairs, but just stood on the sidelines and listened. The headmistress, of course, was delighted with him. After all, he was her own. He pretended to miss her, as if he was still alive. The last 2 weeks, I felt out of place, packed my things, and wanted to leave while Miss Mills was asleep. At the time, I heard her son talking to someone on the phone. He was going to rob his own mother. I couldn't let that happen. I ran into the bedroom and warned her, but she didn't believe me and even yelled at me when I was asleep. I wanted to leave and give up on her, but I remembered how she stood up for me in front of my mother and hit properly, pretended that I was gone. As I said, her son brought a gang of guys into the house and they started stealing everything of value in masks. I called the police, and when they got to her bedroom, I jumped out and stood in front of the door, protecting myself with a bat. They attacked me, and I resisted as best I could. But while they were beating me, the police came and they ran away. Miss Mills was in shock. She couldn't believe what was happening. When she saw the state I was in, she immediately hugged me. From that moment on, we agreed to trust each other. I think we came into each other's lives for a reason. This is the story, friends, but what do you think? Write your opinion in the comments.